Everyone has been instructed that if they see worship services going on, they will go to the officials of that congregation. They'll inform them they need to stop the services and disperse. If that does not happen, they will take additional action up to the point of fines and potentially closing the building permanently.
Closing the place of worship permanently, the mayor of New York City says. I think everyone heard that and said, what? But this is what I mean by we have been conditioned to think that the threat of tyrannical overreach comes from this president. That's what the media has been telling you for years, even though every time he's had some policy dispute with the other side, it goes to court. He goes through the system. You have this bad faith #resistance judiciary that comes up with the most preposterous justifications for slowing down this president, and they have decisions that they go forward with that are just garbage, and then it has to make its way through the judiciary, and Trump eventually is right. But they've been telling us that Trump is a threat of tyranny for all this time, and now you have the mayor of New York City saying, yeah, if you have look, I don't think people in New York right now should be gathering in large numbers for any reason, and that includes religious services. There was a case in South Korea. They did a whole case study of a woman who had COVID-19, went to services there, and infected a whole lot of people in her church. So it can happen. It does happen. It's important not to do that. But to threaten to shut down a place of worship permanently, how is that helpful in this moment? And also, under what authority would the mayor of New York? I'm sure he'd come up with some authority, but that is disconcerting. It's also disconcerting that the same person who is now telling us all that, I'm not going to say all hope is lost, but he has not been, the mayor of New York has not been a calming presence. That's to say the least with all this stuff going on. Here is what he was saying before we saw quite how bad this whole thing was. Play 16.
Right now, we have 1,200 hospital beds. That is a very, very substantial capacity. The message to New Yorkers from the beginning has been, this is something we all can handle together. Go about your lives, go about your business. We have the capacity to keep this contained. I think we said the other day in the meeting that Health and Hospitals is in strong shape, something like ventilators. You can speak to that.
On ventilators, New York City is in good shape, and based on even the most dire predictions of percentages of people who will have serious illness with this, we will be fine.
I want to keep encouraging people to go out and live their lives and patronize those businesses.
One other question. Tomorrow evening, Purim begins.
Yes.
Is it safe for people who have no symptoms to visit parents and grandparents?
Yeah, the point is, and the commissioner can jump in. Yeah, if no one has symptoms, neither the visitors nor the people being visited, yes.
That was a lot of guidance, a lot of advice that the mayor was giving the people of New York City. How much of that looks in retrospect like it was even a little bit a good idea? None of it. You're going to have a lot of people that are playing the blame game and saying that people didn't respond to this properly. And it's going to be a political nastiness all across the board. I would just say that with DeBlasio, he's taken a very firm hand with everybody here in the city today. And it's hard for all of us who see this situation not to feel a little bit of, well, weren't you telling us until recently that everything was going to be fine, and now you're telling us everything is the opposite of fine? And he has professional health people. All they do is look at this. He listened to the experts, we were told. And the experts were wrong on this one, too. A lot of people were wrong. Don't pay attention to the finger pointing right now. There's plenty of time for that later. Right now, we got to get through the storm.
One of the things that this crisis has taught us, sir, is that we are dangerously over-dependent on a global supply chain. For our medicines, like penicillin, our medical supplies, like masks, and our medical equipment, like ventilators. We have right now, as we speak, over 50 countries have already imposed some forms of export restrictions in their country against the rest of the world. And what we're learning from that is that no matter how many treaties you have, no matter how many alliances, no matter how many phone calls, when push comes to shove, you run the risk as a nation of not having what you need. And if there's any vindication of the president's buy American, secure borders, and a strong manufacturing base philosophy, strategy, and belief, it is this crisis, because it underscores everything that we see there.
Navarro's right. He's been right. He was mocked. He was ridiculed by a lot of people, very fancy economists who think that they're so much smarter than him, just as Trump was ridiculed for recognizing the threat that China poses. Many people who think of themselves as experts, who think that what they bring to the table is a breadth of knowledge and judgment on these issues, the particularly sophisticated and complex international trade and policy issues, they have been made to look like complete fools. I mean, sure, it's great if you're somebody who has been offshoring, and if you're a company that's been offshoring to China so that you are making a whole lot more money for yourself. And yes, people have pointed out that, you know, maybe being able to buy a $150 flat screen TV at Walmart because it's made in China isn't worth the price we are paying right now in national preparedness for what's going on. Yeah, you don't say. Now we all understand. Think about what is running short right now. Necessary medical equipment, protective gear, ventilators, antibiotics. A huge percentage of critical and staple, I mean, the antibiotics you need for a whole lot of things, made in China. No one thought this was a problem who is involved in international trade policy in all these DC think tanks and everything else. Our media institutions, no one thought this was a problem until now. The lack of foresight with all of this has been stunning. And it's more than just lack of foresight. There are people who all along have refused to make what are the decisions that are the best interests of America and the American people, because there's a lot of money sloshing around from, let's just call it what it is, the globalists. That's the truth. There are a lot of people who are benefiting from the offshoring and from the outsourcing of all these different jobs and manufacturing and all the things that have been going on. And not only that, I mean, I remember I took a class in, I think it was a required, usually I got to pick my classes, but it was a required freshman class. It was called something like Bridge to the 21st Century. And it was like if a Tom Friedman editorial was made into a freshman seminar that you had to take, that's what this was. It was all just, we are all one people and we are all one trade union and we are all just holding hands and going to get better as a world. And I don't mean America, I mean the world, all the countries of the world, you know. It was a big kumbaya moment, right? We're all supposed to just think that everything's great and fine and you know, no borders, one world government. This has been a fashionable ideology in the academy and in the media, in elite circles, you know, the Davos set for a long time. Of course, if you're super wealthy and you think that you can immunize yourself in a sense from the ill effects of this, which they do when it comes to illegal immigration, for example. Illegal immigration benefits the wealthy almost exclusively. They don't care. And whether you raise the tax rate, you know, what it does to local public schools and English as a second language and all these different challenges. I mean, if you're a member of the Soros family or you're Bloomberg or name a billionaire, none of that stuff matters to you. In fact, you might want to have really cheap labor at your businesses, really cheap labor doing household chores for you, whatever it may be. So they weren't paying the consequences of it. And it's unsurprising in a sense that here we are now, and as many are pointing out, and I saw Ann Coulter editorial on this, and there have been a lot of people that are saying this. This is a pang for globalism moment right now. The storyline here that Trump didn't listen to the experts and that this was all in some way avoidable if only Trump had listened to experts. This is what you keep hearing. This is absurd. The experts didn't know. As of 2 weeks ago, the experts were thinking about maybe after the 15-day period letting us go back to work. And, you know, we'd sort of deal with it. You know, we'd have to do some spike. There'd be a spike here, spike there. We'd handle it. That was where the experts were. At least the coronavirus task force experts who are not administration appointees. These are people that work at CDC. These are people that come from the public health sector. So this, listen to the experts and then things would be so different. I'm still sitting here. I'm still upset because I listened to the experts about a mask, and guess what? I don't have a mask. Don't buy masks. You're stealing them from first responders and other people on the front lines who need them. Okay, but maybe they can get the best masks, but can I put something on? And, oh, no, you don't need it, they said. And now it's, oh, no, you probably should get something, but maybe just a bandana because all the masks are gone. Thanks, experts. I bring this up and people get mad at me. I mean, on social media, the lib blue check rage brigade comes after me. I'm sorry. They told me something. It was wrong. Am I allowed to be annoyed that they told me something that was wrong? No, of course not. Do as you're told. See, libs are used to this. Do as you're told or else by the state. I don't like that. I ask questions. I got problems with that. But I was talking about Mexico, and this is where the liberal narrative about all this is why I played that AOC clip for you. Is going to run into problems. This is not an America thing. This is a global thing. Spain, Italy, much worse off than we are. Are their governments run by Donald Trump, who's so incompetent? No. UK's in tough shape here, too. Tomorrow, remind me, I will talk to you about the Sweden model. Sweden is running an experiment that Sweden is either going to show that all the fear-mongering and panic has pushed us to make wrong decisions, or Sweden's going to get crushed in the next couple of weeks by COVID-19. So remind me, Producer Mark, remind me tomorrow. I want to talk about the Sweden model. I meant to get to it today. But Mexico is going to get hit by this, and Mexico is not ready for this. Mexico is not up for this. John Daniel Davidson, who's a very good reporter down at the Federalist, has a piece about how coronavirus is about to explode in Mexico. Here's what he says. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador recently dismissed the need for caution, urging Mexicans to go shopping and eat out. He even took his own advice, staging large campaign-style rallies, kissing babies, embracing supporters, and saying things like, "You have to hug, nothing is going to happen." Well, now something is happening. On Monday, Mexico declared a state of emergency. The number of confirmed cases exceeded 1,000 with at least 28 deaths. The number of actual cases is no doubt a lot higher. And then we get into what we're looking at here for Mexico at our southern border, below our southern border. The raw numbers, quote, of supplies on hand suggest an impending humanitarian catastrophe. Mexico, with a population of 130 million, has only 356 ICU units, fewer than 50,000 hospital beds, fewer than 2,500 ICU beds, and just over 5,500 ventilators. That's for the entire country. New York City alone has 6,000 ventilators and 2,000 ICU beds. Now, this is going to be very bad for Mexico, assuming this spreads the way the experts have all been telling us it will spread down there. What do we think is going to happen? People are going to make a run north. They're going to want to get out. Securing the border is now all of a sudden going to become a much more obvious national security imperative than it has been in a long time. Because anyone who's trying to avoid this impending catastrophe in Mexico, what is their best option? To come here. And as we see with the cruise ship situation right now, where you have these cruise ships that want to come here, we are not looking, our system is already stretched. We are not looking to take in more COVID patients north or south of our border. Okay, so here is the best case scenario, and I'm not, my friends, I'm not saying this. I've been somebody who, along with a very small handful of people online and on my various platforms and shows, have been saying we need to rethink how much damage we're willing to do to the economy and for how long. And if you do this, you get called Joseph Stalin, a mass murderer. I'm just like, can we just, I mean, okay, fine. We've all agreed now that lockdown is the way to go, even though I'm going to tell you about the Sweden model later. There's some, what does lockdown really mean and how long? And, there's so much. Just lockdown feels like a knee-jerk response as a term, right? What does lockdown specifically indicate for different areas? But here's the economic miracle that they think is going to happen. I think it's fair to call it a miracle. I mean, if we get through this and we don't enter, we're going to be in a depression for a few months. But it's an intentional depression. It's almost like when you put a body into a medically induced coma so that you can then deal with a problem that would kill the person otherwise, and then you bring the person out of the medically induced coma. The way this is supposed to work is that the government is going to just keep shoveling money to people. And I don't say that disparagingly. The government should. The government has said you can't do anything. You're not allowed to work. Your business. And based on the polling I'm seeing, a lot of people are still working in some capacity, but you're not really allowed to. Now, part of the problem is people are going to realize that even if you can work remotely, or even if you are still going to your job, the reduction in the economy is going to start affecting things, even for those who are working, like wages. I have friends who already have received massive pay reductions. Just send an email by their company, by their employer. Sorry, you're now taking a 25, 30, 35% pay cut. No ifs, ands, or buts. And it's no one's fault, right? It's just this is what's going to happen. People are getting furloughed, meaning they're not getting paid, but they're at least on health insurance. They can be brought back. These are the short-term measures. If this is short-term, and again, I'm telling you, I'm not making my argument. I'm looking at this saying I think that we're rolling the dice with the future of the entire country in a sense here. But maybe it comes up. What's good? What do you want on? I don't know enough about gambling. What's good on dice? You don't want snake eyes. I know that. That's ones. Do you want sixes? What's the best thing with rolling dice? Come on, Mark.
You're asking the wrong person.
I feel like you are probably one of these guys that doesn't talk about it, but you have like a suite named after you in Atlantic City or Vegas or something, and you're like a high roller.
I'm way too cheap to gamble.
Ah, okay. Well, whatever the good dice number is, I feel like maybe we get that with the economy, and this is what the plan. By the way, please don't be mad at me and write me an email or write me a note saying, "Buck, why do you believe?" I'm not saying I believe them. I'm just telling you what has been explained to me by people who. And I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it today because I'm trying to just not be Mr. Gloom and Doom. But they are essentially saying the induced coma analogy is what we're talking about. Yes, we are going to a coma. This is an induced depression. And the induced depression is something that they believe once we get economic activity going again, we can be pulled out of. And there will be some problems, and I'll talk a little bit about where that is, where I see that happening. When I say some problems, I mean massive problems, right? I mean, it's tough to use the appropriate language here, but we'll come out of this, and what we won't have is a depression that stretches and grinds on and on. And, a big part of the depression, people think of the stock market of 1929 led to the Great Depression. That's not true. There were a lot of government actions after the stock market went all the way down that made the Great Depression much longer and much worse. And there's a few people that have done extensive studies on this, but really a lot of the New Deal policies and a lot of what FDR did extended the Great Depression, made it a lot worse than it would have otherwise been. Okay, so people don't like to hear that. Libs certainly don't want to hear that. That's the truth. Can we be in an induced depression and then just come out of it? I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. That's what the gamble is right now. Now, if that's true, if the Mnuchin Trump administration ploy here, if their strategy plays out the way that they have planned it, they're just doing this cash infusions to everybody. And within a few months' time, and it is a few months, I'm telling you right now, because I don't want to have the disappointing show where I'm like, it's the end of April, guys. And guess what? We're not going back to work until June at the earliest, in my estimation. Okay. But assuming that they're right, then they'll be able to endure until that point. Then a lot of people get pulled back into their companies because they've been paid by those companies to not work because the government's giving their employers money to do that. Look, it's a massively no one's ever done this before. I mean, this is a massively complicated thing. If the Trump administration pulls this off, I would note it is a miracle, and they deserve re-election and then some. So they're thinking that they can bring down all this economic activity. It is horrifically painful and scary and bad, but they're saying the alternative is hundreds of thousands of people dead. This is where you get into these calculations, these massive societal calculations, these very tough choices that are being made by the government and by individuals, how much risk they'll take personally. But if they are right, this then comes back online and we get growth happening pretty quickly, and there'll be some stop-start and there'll be some problems, but effectively they will freeze and then unfreeze the economy. And there's a lot that comes with that. Will they try this again in the future? I think the answer is yes. Will they say it about the pandemic? But I think there also may be pushes for the environment, for the Green New Deal. We need to shut down this or that for a while. We need to not drive cars for a month. But this is down the line. Let's first get past the horrific pandemic virus. That is the best case scenario from the other side. That is what they're telling you. I leave it to you right now to mull over whether you think that's even a better than 50-50 chance of being true.
We've heard, Zeke Emanuel, that nobody could have seen this coming. The fact is everybody saw this coming. Everybody saw this coming in early January. So I know I know you, like me.
Sorry there, Joe, but that's just not true. In fact, I saw an analysis of Joe Scarborough's Twitter feed from January. I think it was 17 tweets about impeachment, 7 about sports, bunch other about politics. You know how many tweets he put out with his millions of followers about coronavirus in the month of January when there was the first U.S. case, a couple of weeks to figure this out? I remember end of January, I was on the Bill Maher show, and people weren't shaking hands, and we were all talking. Everyone knew that this was you know how many tweets? Zero. And doesn't that make you think at some point that maybe he's not telling the truth? Maybe there's a problem here. This is a lie that the media saw this coming. Joe Scarborough's lying about it. Other people they're all trying to rewrite their history right now and claim that it's not that this was the right called it a hoax. They all knew. They're all so smart. And people are dying. People have blood on their hands on the right and Trump because, this is just a series of, they're all from this year. So they're all from when we knew this was a crisis, or rather that this was a problem, I should say. I'm just going to give you a series of headlines. The national interest. Forget the coronavirus. The flu pandemic of 1918 killed more people in 1 year than all of World War I. The Daily Beast. The virus killing U.S. kids isn't the one dominating the headlines, not coronavirus. National Post. New coronavirus may be no more dangerous than the flu, despite worldwide alarm. Experts. Patch. MD. Flu deaths climb as flu more worrisome than coronavirus. Reuters. Doctors suggest worrying about the common flu, not coronavirus. This is all from end of January, early February. Washington Post. You're likely to get the coronavirus. Well, if we're likely to get it, then my thinking was that a lot of us who are going to get it should just accept that we're probably going to get it and then keep vulnerable populations safe, and then we have herd immunity, right? They were telling us that we were all likely to get it. Now we're all in total quarantine because, oh my God, you can't get this because it's going to kill everybody if we are too many people if we get this. I could go on. This is a whole sheet. It's amazing. It's making the rounds. Wired, we should de-escalate the war on coronavirus. CNN, as the coronavirus spreads, fear is fueling racism and xenophobia. Science, the flu, Science Alert website. The flu is a bigger threat to people in the U.S. than coronavirus. Here's why. To most people than coronavirus. Here's why. AZ Central, new coronavirus is likely to go pandemic, but that's no reason to panic or overreact. The media was all talking about, they were talking about how Trump is a moron, but don't worry about this thing. He's not going to handle it well, and he's a moron, but, this is not going to be that big of a deal. Don't overreact. We got this. We talked to the experts. They're all claiming to have talked to the experts. Axios, why we panic about coronavirus, but not the flu. The mountains of wrong on this would dwarf the Himalayas. From the media, from government officials. Oh, wait. Here's one of my favorites. Speaking of government officials, where did it go? It's one of my favorites. There's that just astonishing from January World Health Organization weighing in on this to say that there was no evidence that there was human-to-human transmission of this. No evidence of human-to-human transmission. This thing spreads like wildfire in close quarters. And increasingly, there seems to be evidence that it spreads pretty well. It spreads pretty well in the air, aerosolized droplets. So I hate this rewriting of history. If you're going to work in the information dissemination business, if you're going to be an analyst or a reporter, you should be honest about where you are. Dr. Burke says she thought it would be like SARS. I thought it was going to be like one of those respiratory viruses that we hear a lot about, and there's some bad cases, but it kind of, disappears after a while. And then I thought, okay, well, we'll give a couple of weeks. Most of the cases will stamp out. We'll get prepared. And then, and now we're being told, no, we're not going back to work. It's not happening for a long time. If you want to go back to work, a whole lot of people are going to die. And this has been the shift. That is the shift in conversation from the administration in the last week alone. Tucker Carlson is doing some of the most important commentary on TV these days during this time when the news should be really powerful and really matter. Tucker's thoughts are mattering. Tucker's thoughts are worthwhile. A lot of the other stuff you're hearing is just either repetitious or it's worthless garbage. Oh, the Navy ship's never going to arrive in New York. Yeah, MSNBC? I looked at it when it did arrive 2 days ago. So there we have it. But let's get into this situation with China here. I believe, and look, you won't really be able to tell me if I'm right or wrong about this for years. So this is one of these predictions where I'll tell some of you, hopefully you'll still be listening. Hopefully we'll have millions of people listening to this show in years. And I'll tell you that I said this. People will look back at this as the beginning of the great struggle between the U.S. and China for global hegemony. And it's going to bring us very close. I'm not saying in a year. I'm not even saying in next 2 or 3 years, next 5 to 10 years. It's going to bring us very close to a shooting war with China because the Chinese Communist Party is not going to go down without a fight. And because this now shows us that what happens in China is not in any way cordoned off from the rest of the world in a whole bunch of contexts. And, they've been engaged in this unceasing theft of intellectual property from the United States for decades now. And we've been trying to help them. Our approach has been, let's make a better, more prosperous, happier, healthier China in every way that we can. Let's be good neighbors. That's always America's view, right? Let's try to be good neighbors when we can. Sometimes we have to invade places and there's bombs dropped, and I understand that. But with China, we were trying to do right by the Chinese government and be good trade partners and all the rest of it. What China's done is, they've sold us a lot of cheap stuff to make their own country a lot wealthier, but they've also been stealing intellectual property and engaged in really nefarious activity for a long time. Okay. Tucker got into the situation of the virus. There are two. Now this is where I've been on this. I keep saying I can't prove it, but let's look at the facts as we know them. There are two institutes of virology or infectious disease study that are a stone's throw away from this wet market in Wuhan. Okay. So you have these two facilities. The disease, this is according to Chinese research, okay? The disease that we now are dealing with and that has shut down the economy, it's the reason that a lot of us are just looking around like, how are we in this global nightmare? People keep saying, I'm going to go somewhere. Okay, you better get way off the grid because this is everywhere. It's in every country. It's in every state. And, you never know when someone's coughing if it's an allergy or if it's this. But the bat, the specific species of bat that it is believed to have been the initial animal reservoir for this virus. And then you have zoonotic transmission. It comes from the animal to people. But the specific virus here is in a kind of bat, the intermediate. Gosh, I can't remember what it is. Intermediate something bat. Mark, do you remember what kind of bat? There's actually hundreds of types of bats. I think there might even be more than that. But there's a lot of bat species. Horseshoe bat. There we go. Intermediate horseshoe bat, which is the scariest looking little thing you could ever find. I mean, that little, you wouldn't want to see that thing hanging upside down in your closet late at night trying to go in there and grab a sleeping cap, right? That would not be good. But this intermediate horseshoe bat that's supposed to be the animal reservoir for this virus, they didn't have any of them. They didn't sell them. That wasn't a species that they would have had within hours. There's no colony of them within hours of, a natural colony of them within hours of the market itself. I think they said last night 900 kilometers. That's a pretty. Now, granted, they bring in animals, they bring in tigers, and they bring in things from all over the world. But you're bringing in a bat that's not native species to the area. There are a lot of bats that are. So you got to, unless somebody thinks that like the intermediate horseshoe bat just tastes so much better in the soup. And that might be possible. I've never had bat soup. I don't know. But it seems fishy, doesn't it? It seems a bit strange that you'd have the intermediate horseshoe bat not living within 500 miles or so. I mean, that's a rough calculation, but whatever 900 kilometers is, it's like 6 or 709er. If I could, read a 10K and do math, I probably wouldn't be working in media. So a little bit of honesty there. But here's the truth. You look at the species of bat and you say, hold on a second. They don't have any near there. And they were studying those bats in these two virology institutes, whatever they're called specifically, these two infectious disease institutions, one of which at least is known to have released viruses that it was studying in the past into the general population. So that's already happened. Now, I don't think that China intentionally let this thing out. Not yet. Meaning, that maybe down the line they were thinking about it. But now that we see how this works, now that we see the reality here, imagine the strategic advantage the biological warfare agent would give you, because this is a weapon that could be completely... Now, to be clear, I do not think that the Chinese did this purposefully. I do think, I know that it came from China, obviously, and I do think there's a high possibility, maybe even now at probability, that it came from, that it was being studied and got out of one of these labs, which would also explain at some level the completely corrupt and insanely irresponsible approach of the Chinese government. It's one thing if you have a virus that pops up somewhere, okay, we didn't know how bad it was. But if the virus is the result of your faulty government labs, think about not that the Chinese people could sue the Chinese government, think about the liability there.
And in order to avoid those very high numbers, we have to do at least several things. One, we have to depend on what the president's going to do right now. And first of all, he has to wait till the cases before anything happens. Look, the whole idea is he's got to get in place things that were shortages of.
What? Gurgling Gergen and Biden are starting to sound more and more similar. The whole bird thing, and a bird in the hand is worth the barn door with the horses that left, and the... What is he talking about? And I bring this up not to be mean, although it is kind of funny to make fun of Biden sometimes. But I bring it up because we are told on a regular basis, every day, by the same media that thinks that Trump is Hitler and the worst person ever, we are told every day that Donald Trump is terrible at this. Joe Biden would be so much better. Based on what? Trump has the experts at the CDC, the NIH up there at the press conferences. He shifted. Let's understand this. 2 weeks ago, we were being told, we might start opening up. It's going to be tough, and there might be some stop and start here with it, but we're going to try to open up for business a little bit in a couple of weeks here. Once we had 15 days, and then it was going to be we open up. Trump clearly was convinced by the experts around him. Nope, can't do that. Too dangerous. Economy shut down. Another 30. Now it's 30 days from now. Another 15 days beyond the. No, I think it'll actually end up being 6 weeks when you add it all in. So a 6-week shutdown is really what we're in for. Right, a 6-week shutdown. Okay. Yeah, I think my math is right on that. It's not as bad as the $500 billion equals, or $500 million equals $1 million for every American, or whatever it was. That was funny. That was good times. But here we are, folks, looking at what the Biden administration would be like. And everyone understands this. That this guy's not up for it, that he's not going to be able to do this some fantastic job that Trump, has been unable to accomplish thus far. But the media is so dishonest that we are going to be the storyline you're told will be that however many people die from this disease, It would have been a whole lot less if Biden had been president. That is what they will tell you, even though it sounds like the guy doesn't know where he is half the time. Even though he has lied a lot. And I know they always say, well, Trump lies. Trump is a salesman who BS's a lot. Trump, I don't see Trump lying about things that matter to you and me. Biden seems to want to constantly pretend that he's a much smarter, more wise individual than he is. That's really been for his whole career. There's some deep intellectual insecurities, I think, there. But nonetheless, he would have saved us. Trump can't save us. That's going to be the story that you're told. And I just have to remind everybody that is just an absurdity. There's no rational reason to believe that. But they must believe it, because otherwise they're stuck with Trump for another 4 years, and they know this. And given the way the press conferences are going over, given how strongly the American people are reacting to Donald Trump, and 60% approval in some of the polls, 60%. I mean, if Trump were to have a clear 52% of the electorate, 51% of the electorate supporting him, he wins, right? 60% approval on this issue. Now, that's not the same as saying they're all going to vote for him, but Democrats are worried about this. What if Trump presided over, just as food for thought and something positive here? I'm going to bring you the positive too, right? It can't just be all, I can't leave all the positive to producer Mark to cheer you up. What if Trump managed to have 3 great years, faced a true crisis unlike anything we've seen in generations, and brings us out of it by election time? What do you think libs will do then?
The president said when he announced that those ships would be put into action against the COVID-19 epidemic, he said one of those ships would be operational in New York Harbor by next week. That's nonsense. It will not be there next week.
It is. She was wrong. That's Rachel Maddow, the, $15 or $20 million a year main news anchor over at MSNBC. Why take that position, though? Why view the president trying to tell people that he's doing what he can to get additional resources to New York? Why is he saying this if he's not really making the effort to do it, right? Start with that. And why would Rachel Maddow then take it as an opportunity to say, oh, but it's not happening, and to snark about this? And she's wrong. It's here. The ship is here. I actually saw it sailing into the port, or Pier 90, rather, the pier here in Manhattan. I saw it as it was coming past my apartment. It was a pretty amazing sight, actually. It was an interesting thing to see. You don't always see now it's also a moment of reckoning that we have a naval hospital ship that has had to arrive here in the largest city in America to try to help with hospital overflow because of what's going on. I mean, I have no illusions at all about what really this symbolizes, but look, anytime the United States Navy shows up somewhere, I feel a little bit better. I feel a little better than I did before they got there, and that's certainly the case here. But the press continues to be so reckless about all of this. The press continues to be wrong and just deeply and utterly irresponsible in the way that they approach coverage of this administration. And I can understand why there's a need right now. There's a sense that we should all be nicer to each other. And I've been trying to be less partisan. I've been trying to be a little bit less of a, what's the word? Go less hard, less intense on my ideological opponents as a general matter, because I do think that we are united. Everyone is inherently united in their humanity and the desire to make things better when it comes to the situation of America right now. We want to beat this virus. We want to find a way to get past this virus. That said, there's not really the same willingness from Democrats who are covering this administration to stop with the nonsense games. They're still trying to score points for their audiences against this guy, and I find that against the president, I find that really unseemly. And these press conferences, we'll talk more about what they've been doing and what some of the media responses to them have been. These press conferences, I think, have been a source of real information and some degree of emotional support for the country. I mean, here you have the president of the United States who's saying, look, we're doing all these things. Here are all the things that we're trying to do to deal with this. And you have people that are trying to play gotcha games about, look, a lot of people, I haven't been right on every step of this, and I admit it. I've, before some others thought that this was a very serious issue, but I wish I had recognized the seriousness of it, 2 months ago. The leadership has been overwhelmingly wrong on this, really at all levels and in both parties. This is worse than they told us it would be even 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I think we come to grips, I would argue even a week ago. I mean, in the last week, what we've seen is, this is really, now that we are up close and personal with this virus in New York City, now that there's real reports coming in, this is definitely not the flu. It's much, much worse than that. So people have been wrong, and I don't understand why, with the president trying to give information about what's happening now, what's going to be going on in the future, why anyone views it as particularly useful or helpful to take that opportunity to ask the president about strategy right now and about what we're doing and try to get him on some older, earlier thing that he did that he said that they didn't like. They are playing gotcha games. Here's the president in an exchange with Jim Acosta, who continues to be the fakest journalist in America. I don't know what else to say. I mean, even now, when there's real problems, there's real lives at risk, and we've got massive issues here. Here's what he says. Play clip 1.
Go ahead. Let's give it a shot.
Sir, what do you say to Americans who are upset with you over the way you downplayed this crisis over the last couple of months? We have it very much under control in this country. The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. It's going to disappear. It's like a miracle. It will disappear. At March 4th, we have a very small number of people in this country infected. March 10th, we're prepared. We're doing a great job with it. It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away. What do you say to Americans who believe that you got this wrong?
And I do want them to stay calm. And we are doing a great job. If you look at those individual statements, they're all true. Stay calm. It will go away. You know it is going away, and it will go away. And we're going to have a great victory. And it's people like you and CNN that say things like that. It's why people just don't want to listen to CNN anymore. You could ask a normal question. The statements I made are, I want to keep the country calm. I don't want panic in the country. I could cause panic much better than even you. I could do much. I would make you look like a minor league player. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to have our country be calm and strong and fight and win. And it will go away. And instead of asking a nasty, snarky question like that, you should ask a real question.
Yes, correct. It would be better for all of us if they would ask real questions instead of the gotcha nonsense that we see from CNN as well as other news organizations.
Your campaign put out in a critique of President Trump and says if he doesn't do these things, he could cost lives. Do you think there is blood on the president's hands considering the slow response? Or is that too harsh of a criticism?
I think that's a little too harsh. I think what's happening is the failure to, as I watched a prelim to your show where someone said that used the phrase that the president just thinks out loud.
I get really tired of this talking point that the president should listen to the health experts. The health experts are with him and speaking directly to the American people every day. And he just made a massive decision that some people may look back on. I know right now it's okay. The virus is really bad in some places in the country. It's going to get worse in other places. Let's shut down for the entire month of April. Let's hope that the response from the administration to deal with the economy is sufficient. There is the chance that we will look back at this decision to shut down well beyond Easter, to go weeks beyond Easter, and recognize that economically it was disastrous in a way that, we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping that that's not the case. All along I've been wondering why is not more of the focus on protecting vulnerable populations and just doing social mitigation, but allowing people to do more work or to do more of their jobs. But I suppose for things like restaurants and other businesses, congregating in numbers is an essential part of the business. So you can't really change that. It's a very complicated problem. And people that are going around dunking on one another because someone's wrong on this one, you know, I can guarantee you this: President Trump, everyone who works in the White House right now, you know, the people that are dealing with this problem day in and day out, if they could wave a wand and save every single life from today forward, they would do it. We all know that. Everyone wants maximum life saved. Everybody wants everyone's mom, dad, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, wife, husband, you know, son, daughter, you name it, right? We all want all of them to come through this. But we also are operating in the reality of we are in a war with a virus, and right now the virus is taking a heavy toll on us with casualties, a lot. And remember, the casualties is wounded as well as killed. A lot of the people right now who are being intubated and going through this process, you know, they're suffering very badly, even if they come through this on the other side. And that's why when Chuck Todd says something, and this is the start of this little conversation we're having, this segment, do you think there's blood on the president's hands considering the slow response? I mean, Chuck Todd is honestly, he's so indicative of the elite media and someone who, I don't know, it's just all smoke and mirrors. I mean, the guy isn't very bright, doesn't seem ethical in the least in the way that he covers the news, is smarmy, is a little bit of a crybaby, and yet he's offered up by NBC as someone that you should all listen to. I don't know why. You wouldn't want Chuck Todd, you know, you wouldn't want Chuck Todd to have your back in any situation. I mean, this guy just doesn't strike me as somebody of any real character or backbone. Asking if the president has blood on his hands? Really, you're going to hold the president responsible for this? Is the president responsible for what's going on in the rest of the world, too? Because there are a lot of, every major country right now is either about to or getting crushed by this virus. Last night I was watching Tucker Carlson show because right now I think he's got the best show on cable news. And I was watching it, and he had a guy on. He had two people on to sort of represent different perspectives. One's an expert; he's a doctor, and said the usual stuff. You know, flatten the curve, get the disease down. Okay, he just looks at the projections from a week or two ago, and then goes online and says, "Okay, so the projections were wrong. Does anybody care?" And people shouted at him, "And you're a murderer, and why don't you care about old people?" And all the crazy stuff that, you know, some of them have been yelling at me too, just for saying, "So we're just going to do this now. We're just going to induce a depression. See what happens. See what happens." You know, they already have riots in Italy, folks. You don't see a lot of reporting on that, do you? They have riots in Italy. What does anyone think that if we got into riots here in a place like New York City, given the tension that we're already under, what is that going to look like? Yeah, there's a life protection issue that would come into play pretty quickly there, wouldn't it? And we got the NYPD right now out sick, too. So a huge percentage of the New York Police Department's out sick. So, but Tucker had on this doctor who, you know, Tucker went through the whole, okay, what about if we did the following? And this would have been what I thought. I don't know. Not an expert, right? I got to keep repeating this because everyone yells at me and all the rest. I don't care. Whatever. People are nuts. But trying to do the best I can to be as honest and worthwhile in my analysis of this as I can. But there was a doctor on last night, and he was asked about what if we took the approach of protecting vulnerable populations, mask, gloves, work on all the serology tests, do all the things we're doing, but allow people to go to work. You're not going to be going to restaurants, you're not going to be going to bars, but the American people go back to work with precautions for themselves and with vulnerable populations still quarantined for, you know, let's assume the next 60 to 90 days while we figure out more of what's going on here. But then there's more economic activity. There's a greater sense of normalcy. And the doctor gave, I'm just going to say, the doctor gave a zero answer. No, flatten the curve. Okay, maybe flatten the curve is right, but why? Why is that other thing not going to work? We really believe that the people who are in the less vulnerable end of the population going to work with precautions, still telecommuting if they can, but going to work, going to their place of business with precautions. Now, people might shoot this idea down just by saying with social distancing in place, without a relaxation of that, Bars, restaurants, retail, none of that opens. Hotels, travel, none of that opens. Okay, I mean, maybe that's, but then what about everything that's not those things, right? What about people that need, and you might say that's such an insignificant part of the population, it's not worth the risk. That's an answer to the question. I'm just saying the doctor had no answer. And I think that was frustrating. And the Swedes, who we often look to as a very, socially cohesive, very together, pleasant country, right? I mean, the Swedes, everyone feels like they're healthy and happy and, a lot of good stuff going on there. They have decided not to do what all these other countries are doing. Here's a piece from the Telegraph. Faced with what many there believe will be a manageable illness, Sweden has decided, for now at least, that lockdown presents a greater risk. Lockdown presents a greater... How could that be possible? Are the Swedes monsters who don't care about lives? Do the Swedes not care about old people and people with health conditions dying from this? Is the Swedish government full of truly evil people? Why would a country of 20 million people that does have cases and they know that it's there and they're seeing all the... What do they do? They're doing what I just said. People are asking, why don't we try that? Sensible precaution, protect vulnerable populations, and evaluate as you go along. Nope, we've taken the just shut it all down, just shut it down approach. For how long? We don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll let you know. Depression? Who cares? Not important right now. We'll see. Maybe I come back in 2 weeks and I go, okay, Sweden has gotten absolutely hammered by this virus and they've changed course and they know they were wrong and this was a disaster and they ran the experiment that some of us, I'm not even saying we should have run it here. I'm just saying I want an explanation as to why that wouldn't work. Or why wouldn't the Sweden model work in Utah while we keep New York on lockdown and let the virus get more under control here? Well, why not? That was what was being talked about 2 weeks ago. No, we went from looking at this, it seemed to me, in a fashion that was based on, balancing out risk and reward to the overall American population. We went from what do? We got to protect people, but what are we willing to sacrifice as an entire society here for these? This is what goes on, and over the course of the last 2 weeks, it just turned into like shut it down, shut it all down. As long as it has to go, doesn't matter. Just the government will send out checks. Close your mouth. Stay home. That's it. How long? Don't ask. Oh, and there might be a national shutdown order coming. Don't worry about the Constitution. Okay. All right. This is what we're being told. This is what has been said. The same folks that are in a lot of cases telling you that this is the only way forward are also saying, wow, there's so much less CO2 in the air because of this shutdown. Isn't that a great thing for the planet? You don't think that some of the new powers, I mean, this is a stress test on society of government just being able to say, there's a really important thing. You no longer have any real rights to question anything. You do what we say. Now, for some of us, I understand it's just an extreme circumstance, and we're just going to say, okay, I guess for now we got no choice. Some of you are probably saying, Buck, I'm not willing to make that trade-off. But for other people, they'll see it as an opportunity. For progressives in the left, they will see this ability to get the government, to get the American people to do as they say or else as something to be reused in the future. Mark my words.
Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.